well. This is a request for straight zoning to rezone the subject property from agricultural to single family 65.
I'm a big fan of flag lots in the ETJ, much less within the city limits. So I've got a real problem with that. PD, get rid of that, or I'm hesitant to say okay based upon flag lots.
That ditch that runs through there, they're gonna have massive problems with that from an engineering standpoint. It is steep standing on the road. When you stand on Sherman Street, the barn, the roof line of the barn is at the street level of Sherman. That's how much topography that lot has on it. And they're asking for straight 65. So I have a feeling they're gonna sell it and we're gonna get something jammed down our throat down the road that we don't want.
You can't add specific conditions. It's either SF 65 or nothing, or because it's not a planned development, there's not an opportunity to modify standards within the straight zoning.
Moving this from ag to residential makes total sense. It's just there's some things with the shape of that lot and the levels of that lot in terms of elevations that we have questions, and there's no one here to represent
Very
that.
briefly,
So
this is the subject property surrounding in yellow. The property, as you described it, being located on the west side of Waco and south of Shreveport. The half-acre in question is, as I said, surrounded in yellow. Just for a bit of context, the two adjacent properties to the north are retail in nature. This particular request is for a planned development specifically. The applicant has indicated an intent to demolish the existing residential structure and build a commercial building with a zoning of the property of neighborhood convenience.
We are in full support and agreement of all conditions that Alex and staff have specified in the densely planned landscaping around the perimeters of the property and a development agreement. The whole goal of this project is to serve the community and the commercial needs.
My name is Janine Lane, and my father is Johnny Mays, and he is the owner of 486 South Waco. We opposed this for a number of reasons, and we did submit our opposition. We intend on buying a residential property to turn it into a business. I don't think it's a good fit for Van Alstyne. We want to keep Van Alstyne charming, and while we know Van Alstyne is growing, it still has that small town feel. In this neighborhood, we would like to keep that way.
I saw all the options up there and respectfully do not agree with any of it. I took gymnastics in a massive place. There were tons of people parking. I don't need to live by medical waste. I don't need to live by any of it. I don't need any more traffic on Shreveport. People already run the stop signs and speed. We need so much more in this neighborhood than a business. It was purchased as a residential property. It should stay as a residential property.
We lovingly restored the historic home that we live in. The home they're talking about demolishing is a historic home that brings charm to this town. Those are the types of things that you all should care about in keeping the charm and the beauty that is Van Alstyne. Don't tear down that beautiful craftsman home.
I don't see the need to put a business right in the middle where it's all residential. Regardless of whether you call it low impact or not, you're still gonna have traffic, and you're gonna have noise, and you're gonna have lighting.
So we actually reached out to each and every neighbor that touches the property. We did not receive a single phone call back. And one neighbor actually said he had nothing to talk about.
The only way that I would want this to be commercial would be for a single use, small building that would look like the neighborhood. I think a half an acre for any more than one business going in there, that would be very low traffic.
Harmonious to the neighborhood, and my concern is, you have all these residents that live a stone's throw or back up to the property, and you say you reach out to them, yet not seen not one of them, not one has said yes. So I would like to see something that is more harmonious and more agreeable to the neighbors before it's presented to us.
Be something that all of them would be okay with. Now, nobody's okay with just demolishing a home, but that was gone. It really needs to be for them. It's not us saying, we're going to put a commercial property in their backyard. They need to be happy with your decision as well.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor signify by raising their hand, please.
Just briefly touch upon the changes that have happened since this item was discussed at the last meeting, and then I'll turn it over to the applicant who has more detail to provide about the subject changes. Starting with the roadways, since the previous meeting, the smaller exhibit on the lower left shows how the previous orientation of the zoning exhibit, as you can see, in response to a recommendation discussion regarding Bowman Street, I believe it's also called Samaria Drive as well, but they have modified that particular street, Bowen Street in this case, to connect from the baseball fields to the west over to Lincoln Park Road. And in addition to that, have provided a temporary emergency access connection from Bowen through to White Wing Dove Drive, which does provide a secondary point of access to the development. And certainly, as you can recall, one of the main points of discussion was emergency service and accessibility to this. And so along those lines, have provided for some slight modifications of the amount of masonry and added the allowance for cement fiber, similar to hardy board, as well as stucco as permitted building materials, and added some amenity features, notably a gazebo.
So if it was a big concern then, I would think it would be even more concern now with another addition. And even if it was reduced to 92, that would be 2 additions with 92 lots. And if you consider 2 cars per each home, that would end up being 366 more cars on a 2-lane 121 east, which would be an awful lot of traffic.
I don't have the concerns that the residents do, but I own the property on the east side of that. And I cannot allow all the floodwater to come off on me. I spoke with my attorney who said he would like to be here, but he's out of town. He said, well, just ask them to put a pond in. Ask them to put drains out onto the road ditch. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm just asking you what can happen so that in a really rainy year, all that water doesn't come off on me.
I say no to duplexes, duet homes, whatever you want to call it. Those will not be owner homes. They're going to be investment properties. There will be tenants. They will not care about what it looks like at all.
The difference between now and 2 years ago is our legislators have changed a lot of rules in which they're taking powers away from the city. We need to, in my opinion, meet developers halfway. We still need to have strong standards, but we need to be halfway because it's going to be more and more and more difficult to annex into the city properties. And we need to have as many, if developers come in and see that they can't make money on what's inside the city limits, then everything's going to be built outside the city. Coming down 121, this is not going to be a drop in the bucket.
Developers are really trying to work within the confines of what the city of Alstyne wants. But there is nothing in the zoning ordinance that says you have to use all the different zoning categories for a particular thing. So 85s were never part of our vision because they're right across the street. I mean, they're 84s, they are a little bit smaller, but if someone is looking for that lot type, they can find, 86 of them across the street?
I think it's 87.
87. We have done everything we can to reduce the number of lots, and I just would hope that you can approve it as it is.
If this is approved, make sure that you do follow through, because one point did not.
All in favor, signify by raising their hand, please. All opposed? Abstain? Yes.
The request this evening is to rezone really a portion of this yellow tract. What you're seeing here is 11 acres. I'll show one of the planned development exhibits that really kind of zeroes in on 6.5 acres on the eastern side of this particular property. The request being to rezone that 6.5 acres out of this 11 acre tract to allow for multifamily development.
Our original proposal, we had a more interior layout that was similar to the Brooks and the Flats. And Alex really pushed us to elevate our design and create a more urban style look, as you can see with buildings on the perimeter and the parking, and to add additional amenities. And so, as you mentioned, this is a concept plan, so there's a possibility that we develop this, there's a possibility that another multifamily developer develops it as well. We're in the process of working through that, but obviously this is the first stage to determine what we can do.
For 28 units is apartments, right?
Correct.
Okay, how many parking spots?
So 416.
It's commercial right now, and I think that's adequately labeled. It has access to the service road, and I think the size of this property has potential of a really nice commercial development. But I would not be opposed to this if the other 5 apartment complexes weren't there.
The benefit of this and having all the multifamily together is to actually help to drive some of the commercial on the other side of the property, which I think can be relatively vibrant. And then hopefully the other parts of the PD that are, owned by other folks can ultimately be developed into some high quality commercial as well.
What I do have a problem with are two things. One, I think the density's too high. There's too many apartments, too many people, too many cars in that one particular area, especially if you do lose that access. Now everybody's going to be going in and out one road. And you're going to have 400 plus cars trying to get in and out one. We're back to the same thing we dealt with on Lincoln Park for an emergency situation. If that ever got closed down, emergency services couldn't get in there. But the other thing I have is this, I appreciate the fact that you're saying you're going to do an elevated look. That's great. But you've admitted that we're probably not going to be the one that's building the apartments, and somebody else is going to do it, so you really don't know what they're going to do. So it's easy to say it's going to be elevated, and then they come in, and next thing you know, they're presenting the stuff to the PD, and it just looks like they're apartment around it.
Having no further discussion, all in favor of the motion to deny, recommend the council for denial, signify by raising their hand. 5-0.
Alstyne City to utilize asphalt in lieu of concrete for parking at the new museum. As you know, the museum recently relocated from over here on Jefferson over to the corner of Waco and Jefferson.
That needs to be dealt with the gravel there. Someone could trip and fall. I mean, now that that's, part of the city, and I think it speaks better, to the future of that museum to fix that. And it's consistent with, the current Jefferson Street. And so, I would be more comfortable if we had a time frame on when Jefferson Street will be addressed, because I feel like that's just going to be all one big project, right? That's the proposal here.
Jefferson Street is on the current street CIP, the 14 streets that Lane is trying to get done. So Jefferson Street from Waco to Hobson is one of the streets that will be concrete with subsurface drainage whenever that street CIP happens.